Alright, hello folks, this is Chris Lucas. Um, I'm also known on YouTube as Liquid Smooth, and I also have another channel called The Protestant View, which I do plan on starting to put more videos on, and because I kind of want to keep everything separated. My Liquid Smooth channel is just kind of like my own personal channel where I just kind of throw up any kind of random videos. Um, but I think I kind of want to move away from that and just kind of keep like my more political or religious based videos all on the Protestant view, which will primarily be more of like, I guess, just talking about things from a Protestant perspective, issues of the world from a Protestant perspective. Um, but anyway, lately I've been noticing a lot of this forged Obama birth certificate stuff starting to come up again. All right, like it seemed like I saw very little of it until just like the last 2 months, and I'm not quite sure why all this is coming out now. I mean, maybe it's just because of some new things that happened with Sheriff Joe or whatever. But this whole focusing on whether Obama's birth certificate is forged or not, um, I've never liked that because I think if you want to prove that he's not fit to be president, there was something much simpler to prove. I mean, why prove? Why are you spending so much time trying to prove something that so many people are trying to cover up? When instead, why don't we focus on the natural born citizen issue, which I think is much easier to prove because Obama and everyone else will admit he's a half British citizen and a half American citizen. They will freely admit to that. Now, they will deny that he ever forged his birth certificate, but they will all, even Obama himself, will freely admit he's half of a British citizen and half of an American citizen. And the reason why I say British citizen is because of this whole document that was written. I think it was in like 1948, if I'm not mistaken. I'll check on it later on this video. But there was like a document written, and it basically, had, and people born in Kenya had British citizenship because it was still a British colony. So, and then later on, Kenyan had its own Kenyan citizenship. But at the time when Obama was born, it was still under British control. So because it was under British control, British citizenship, okay? So anyway, he's definitely has dual citizenship. Now, I know people like Alex Jones and other people will say, hey, we shouldn't even talk about whether he's natural born in the first place because his real dad was Frank Marshall Davis. And Frank Marshall Davis was an American citizen, so he's actually an American citizen anyway. He just lied about who his parents are. Well, if he lied, then that's perjury. You can't lie to get elected. You can't lie about something like that and get elected and not face consequences. So, see, by just pushing the natural born citizenship issue, you accomplish, two things. He either has to talk about, okay, I'm really a natural born citizen. My father's really Frank Davis. Well, now you lied. So now here's another issue of a legal battle because now you have to have some kind of charges pressed on you for lying to get elected. Lying about your birth certificate in order to get elected, right? And forging a birth certificate if your dad's really Frank Marshall Davis, okay? So, I mean, but see, if you just go to the natural born citizen rate, the natural born citizen route, you you don't have so many hurdles to jump. Because see, the first hurdle you gotta jump is proving it's a forgery anyway, which everybody, including Obama's fighting. Why go that way? Well, let's take the path of least resistance. So, that path of least resistance would be, let's like look at the Constitution. Okay, and does the Constitution define what a natural born citizen is? Well, if we look at Article 1, okay, and then we scroll down to Section 8, it says, the Congress shall have power to lay and collect taxes, duties, imposts, and excises, to pay the debts and provide for the common defense and general welfare of the United States. But all duties, imposts, and excises shall be uniform throughout the United States. Now, this is talking about, now up under here is talking about all the power Congress has. So they got the power to lay and collect taxes, to borrow money on the credit of the United States. But now when we scroll down to, I think it's Clause 10, it says to provide for the punishment of counterfeiting, oops, no, I got the wrong one. Okay, here's number 10. To define and punish piracies and felonies committed on the high seas and offenses against the law of nations. So, this term, law of nations, what does it mean? Is it referring to international law? Is it referring to some kind of UN charter? United Nations charter? What's it talking about? Okay, some people don't know. I didn't know for the longest time, so don't feel bad. And this just tells you how bad the public education system is, because, in 1791, a man by the name of James Wilson, wrote how important it was for the people to understand natural law and the law of nations. Because it's like, how could you possibly expect the Commonwealth, the people, to vote for the right people if they don't even understand the law of nations, right? And here it is, we see this term and we don't even know. Most Americans don't even have a clue what it means. And what it's referring to is a book written by Vattel. Vattel, Emmerich Vattel, wrote this book in I think it was 1751. I don't have it up on my screen bookmark. This is another article that I would like to read. But anyway, I think it was back in about 1751, I think, that Vattel wrote this book, and it's called The Law of Nations. And that's what the Constitution is referring to. So when the Constitution talks about terms like natural-born citizen, well, where do we go to figure out what they mean by that word? Because some people will argue that it means someone just born in America, so they're naturally born because they were naturally born here by a woman. A woman gave birth and they just naturally popped out of the womb and now they're a natural citizen, and that's not true. And I'm going to go on to read why it's not true. Because in his book, Vattel says about citizens and natives, the citizens are the members of civil society, bound to this society by certain duties and subject to its authority. They equally participate in its advantages. The natives, or natural-born citizens, are those born in the country of parents who are citizens. So, see, it's plural, parents. So, both parents, because you don't have 3 parents, you don't have 4 parents, you have 2 parents. So, obviously, it means mother and father who are citizens. So, anyway, it goes on to say, as a society cannot exist and perpetuate itself otherwise than by the children of the citizens, those children naturally follow the condition of their fathers and succeed to all their rights. That's interesting because it says the condition of their fathers. Well, Obama's father was a Kenyan British citizen. But anyway, the society is supposed to desire this in consequence of what it owes to its own preservation, and it is presumed as matter of course that each citizen, on entering into society, reserves to his children the right of becoming members of it. This all makes logical sense. The country of the fathers is therefore that of the children, and these become true citizens merely by their tacit consent. We shall soon see whether on their coming to the years of discretion, that means the children getting old enough to make up their minds for themselves, basically becoming adults, they may renounce their right and what they owe to the society in which they were born. That means these children might grow up and be like, well, I don't like this government, I don't want to be any part of it. And so they could renounce it. But until then, they should be able to be treated like citizens and share in all those same rights and advantages of the citizens of the country of which they were born of, which their fathers were born of. I say that in order to be of the country, it is necessary that a person be born of a father who is a citizen. For if he is born there of a foreigner, it will only be the place of his birth and not his country. So see, it doesn't really matter whether Obama was born in Hawaii or not. Because right here, Vattel's saying that, okay, let's say, two parents take a vacation somewhere. Well, maybe a turbulence on the flight causes the mother to go into premature labor. They were not planning on actually having children while they're out on vacation, or while they were visiting a friend in some other country, or doing something business related in some other country. They were not planning on having children. Maybe they were not planning on having children there. Turbulence in the plane causes the mother to go into labor. So as soon as the plane lands, they rush her to a hospital in another country. She has a baby. Now, do you think that baby should suddenly become whatever country it was born in? I mean, because the parents are going to go home, take the baby with them. The baby's going to grow up in America. Does it not make sense that the baby is still considered a natural born citizen, or at least a citizen of America, despite the location? I mean, it doesn't make sense that baby suddenly, let's say it was born in Britain, it's suddenly a British baby just because the family spent, 3 days there? You think that makes any kind of logical sense? Or that, if someone from another country was just visiting America, let's say it's some queen and prince from some other country, they come visit here. You think their child should be an American, just because their wife just happened to give labor here? It's ridiculous. So, even, when people are obsessing whether he's born in Hawaii or not, it doesn't matter. See, what I think these people are doing is pushing an agenda saying, oh, the most important thing is where they're born at. No, the most important thing is what citizenship your mother and father have. And according to Vattel, it's mostly what your father is. But we'll go on and we'll be as broad as to say mother and father, right? So if location is not the most important issue, why even press this forged birth certificate ideal? Why not just go on down the path of least resistance and instead look up this natural born citizenship issue? See, it seems like they do not want to touch this, and I don't know why. And then some people will argue, oh well, Vattel, how do we know that the founding fathers really wanted, were influenced by him, or that the Constitution has any connection to the law nations? Well, Benjamin Franklin, and people don't know who he is, you just kind of do a little Google search, but he was a signer of our Constitution. And in a letter to Charles W.F. Dumas, December 1775, he says, I am much obliged by the kind present you have made us of your edition of Vattel. It came to us in good season, when the circumstances of a rising state make it necessary frequently to consult the law of nations. Accordingly, that copy which I kept, after depositing one in our public library here, and send the other one to the College of Massachusetts Bay, as you directed, has been continually in the hands of members of our Congress, now sitting, who are much pleased with your notes and preface, and have entertained a high and just esteem for the author. So, I mean, right here, he's making, he's speaking of the law of nations being vital to, and the influence of writing the Constitution. So, when I'm reading that stuff about what Vattel wrote concerning a natural-born citizen, it seems like we can easily make the connection that the law of nations is probably where we should look to define what natural-born citizenship means. And I cannot figure out what a stronger connection to that definition someone can make other than the one I made. Because this book is actually referenced in the Constitution. So what other source can you even cite? No one can even cite another source that differs in meaning from what I am saying it means, which also is referenced in the Constitution. But okay, if that's not enough for you, okay, this is from the Library of Congress. Another excellent post is the following: the concept of judicial review, which Hamilton had championed in Rutgers versus Waddington, was included in the U.S. Constitution. In the Federalist Papers, number 78, the judges, as guardians of the Constitution, circulated as part of the debate over the new Constitution. Hamilton developed a conception of constitutional law which was coherent with Vattel's conception. Hamilton stated that it is a fundamental principle of Republican government which admits the right of the people to alter or abolish Hamilton stated that it is a fundamental principle of the Republican government which admits the right of the people to alter or abolish the established Constitution whenever they find it inconsistent with their happiness. However, the Constitution can only be changed by the nation as a whole and not by temporary passions of the majority or by the legislature, both to protect the Constitution but also to ensure just enforcement of the law. The independence of the judiciary from the legislature and the executive branch is essential. The judiciary must be guardians of the Constitution to ensure all legislative decisions are coherent with it. This ideal is championed by Hamilton, that the courts ensure that the executive and legislative branches follow the Constitution, was later established as a principle of the American jurisprudence by Chief Justice John Marshall. So, but within this quote, what is key is when it said Hamilton developed a conception of constitutional law which was coherent with Vattel's conception. So Vattel's work, Law of Nations, is part of the Constitution, was instrumental in forming the Constitution, was instrumental in its influence, and was instrumental in its defining of the words. So, and anyway, that's pretty much the conclusion of my video, was just bringing up these points and just questioning why people are not going down this path If you want to get Obama for not being a legal president, not being a just president, not having by not being and by not meeting legal requirements. If you want to make that argument, go about it this way. I do not understand why people are going about it any other way. And I will leave links to this. I think this was a pretty good article that I found on this webpage. So I'll leave a link to this. Pretty sure anyone can look up a copy of the Constitution, so I won't bother looking that up. I might leave a copy of this to birthers.org, USC, Vattel.htm, because this is a pretty good article that talks about also differences between subjects and citizens and why that's important, and it goes into Vattel and the whole understanding of what a natural born citizen really is and why it's important. And I probably will leave a link to this other article I found, written by James Wilson, on the Law of Nations. And this was written, and the reason why I think this is important is it was written in 1791. So if this man has different ideals than what the founders believed, than what, or what anyone else believed, if this guy was getting it wrong, then there should be other works, other writings written in that same time period arguing against what he's saying. But the thing is, I cannot find anybody arguing against what he's saying. So, I mean, so this is kind of an issue I have too, is that, yeah, you might, 200 years from now, you might be like, 200 years from that point, someone might go, oh, I don't think that's what they really meant. Well, if that's not what they really meant, or that's not what was accepted by the nation, can you show me proof written in that time period where people were arguing, saying, no, that's not what we mean, that's not what we mean, we're the founding fathers, we're still alive, that's not what we mean. See, we would see things like that, but we can't find things like that. So, I mean, so that's very important to know and understand and think about while you're reading all this and researching all this is, okay, here's people writing about things right at the founding of the country, 1791. You know, the country was founded right around then. 1776. So, you know, you're only talking about like 15 years later. So I'm pretty sure, you know, a lot of people who helped found the country were still alive. They could still argue. They could still see these writings, still argue about it. And no one argued against this guy or against other people that believe similar things or argued against the arguments I'm posing. You know, no one would argue against me. You cannot find someone in that time period that wrote something that contradicted what I'm telling you. And that's what we need to go by, is what they were saying then, because we're going by what words meant according to their definitions at that time period when the contract was wrote, because basically the Constitution is a contract. So we have to go by what words meant at the time when documents were written. You can't go by what they mean today. We gotta go by what they mean then, and what were people thinking then. And we need to see proof. You know, when someone argues against me or against these people, let's see proof. Let's see what you can find. But to date, and I've been talking about this for about 4 years now, to date, I have not seen someone go, oh, Chris, here's some old argument that totally shows you that, you know, that they were arguing against him and bashing people like James Wilson and bashing other people that wrote the similar things. You know, look, right here, this is what it really means. See, Obama really is a good president, or really is, you know, a legal president. I have yet to see that. And until I see that, you know, most of these people are just idiots and liars to me that argue against me. But I really recommend people. I'm going to post this article, and there is a lot of good stuff in this article. That this guy, I guess he goes by NoBarack08. This is his web blog, and this was a very good article. Cause he's talking about how there's like a myth that the founding of the American Republic was based on the philosophy of John Locke. And I have yet to hear anyone talk about that, and I find that really interesting that he brought that up. And he's also talking about Leibniz's influences. I cannot pronounce his name. I read it, but I just can't pronounce it. Sorry. But anyway, they were saying that this guy actually had influence of the founding, and most people were backing what he said, including Vattel, including the founding fathers, and that it was not that the American Republic was not based on John Locke, and I would agree with that. And I think a lot of things he says regarding that is pretty interesting. I bet that's new news to a lot of people, and a lot of it was news to me. And I feel like I'm decently well read, and it was still news to me, and I was like, oh, that's pretty interesting. So I'll post that, urge people to read that, and thanks for listening.